Hey guys, so the first thing we're going to do is we need to glue together the XPS construction foam so that we can make a surfboard blank out of it. So this video is going to be how to make a blank from this foam right here, this construction foam that I bought at Home Depot. So to build a surfboard you need a nice set of stands. So I built a set of stands out of two 2x4s basically, and just made them into a shape like this. Nothing fancy. You can find plans for this online. I'm not going to talk about this that much, but I did remove the foam. Normally there'll be foam on the top here. I removed that foam so it would be a lot easier to work with for making the blank, the first step. So let's get to it. Other thing you'll need is a couple pieces of 2x4s, or I just have some scrap wood that I ripped on the table saw and I had kept, and I'm just going to use that for this. But you can use 2x4s or whatever wood that you might have lying around. Next thing, you're going to need some polyurethane glue. Polyurethane glue is glue that will basically bond anything. So I have a bottle of it here. To activate polyurethane glue, you need water. So I got a spritz bottle here for water. So I'll show you how to use that here in a bit. And you are going to need a whole bunch of clamps. You might need some ratchet straps as well. I have a whole box of them here. And this is to clamp the middle of the board. I'll show you how that works after. So that's basically all the materials you need, besides some gloves and maybe a popsicle stick or a squeegee of some sort or a putty knife to spread out the glue. The first step is I'm going to lay out some wood to make a bench on my stand here. So I'm going to put one piece on one side, and then another piece on the other side. And lay the foam on top. For maximum adhesion, I'm going to take some really rough sandpaper and I'm going to just lightly sand both sheets of foam where they're going to be mated together. Alright, let's glue this together now that we've sanded it. First thing to do is spritz the bottom, or one piece I should say, one piece of the foam with water. Water activates and causes the polyurethane glue to cure. So I'm going to spritz the other side, the other board, with some water and then mate the two together. Okay, after spreading it out, you can see that the polyurethane glue is starting to foam up. It will foam up a little bit and fill gaps, but it's not a great gap filler and it loses quite a bit of strength. So you want to make sure when you clamp this that it's clamped super, super tight. Now we're going to take some ratchet straps and clamp all the way around. We're going to put a board underneath, board on top, and that'll push down the center, so we'll put a ratchet strap every so often. So this is how I clamped it. I have a 2x4 on the top, I have some scrap deck boarding that I made into a T on the bottom that I screwed together, which just applies pressure in the middle using all of these ratchet straps. Now we just need to let this sit for maybe 24 hours to let the glue cure, and then we'll remove the clamps and see how it looks. One quick thing I wanted to mention, now where I have a whole bunch of clamps and ratchet straps, I was able to do all this without having to kind of jig around and jury rig something. But what you could do is you could get a threaded rod or a really long screw, and you could bolt it all the way through, drill a hole. You might have a little hole in the foam, but that can be filled later. And you could bolt it all the way through to hold it together. That would be another option as well. Alright, it's time to unclamp it and see how well the glue glued up. And I just wanted to mention real quick, this is the popsicle stick that I used to spread out the glue yesterday, and it's foamed up after reacting with the water, causing it to expand. That just what seems to happen with this type of glue. So it does expand to fill in minor little gaps. You don't want it to expand nearly as much as this because this make it a little weaker. It's not nearly as strong. But anyways, that's polyurethane glue. Alright, so the blank is all glued up, no gaps from what I can tell. It's looking really good. Next thing to do is to square up the blank, and how I'm going to do that is I'm going to use some boards, and I'm going to line it up on either side, on both sides, clamp it, and then hot wire it. Now, you could also clamp boards on it and then take a saw and saw it. It's not going to be as clean, or you could use like a hot knife, a knife and do it, but it will be it'd be a lot easier to work with if you have a hot wire cutter, and I'll show you how mine works here in a second. But we're going to square up the blank and then cut it in half and put a stringer in it. Now, you don't have to use a stringer. I just like using a stringer because it's just a little easier to work with when shaping the board, and it does provide a little bit more rigidity and strength to the board. Although this foam is pretty dense, so with a good glassing schedule, the board should hold up just fine. I've made a stringerless board before, but I prefer one with a stringer myself, but that's just personal preference. This is my hot wire cutter. I'm just going to do a quick overview of it. I'm not going to go super in depth, but you can find plans online how to make one of these. I have another video on my channel on my previous build section that shows you how to make one as well. So what it has is I have a line coming into a box, which then goes to a light dimmer, which controls the voltage. I believe it's voltage. And then I'm not an electrical engineer or electrician by any means. So it goes into this, which then allows me to control the voltage and then it's hooked up from here to a plug, which then I plug into a transformer, this guy here, which steps down the 110 line voltage down to either 12 or 24 volts, which then from there the line out gets plugged into this long piece of wire, which then plugs into the actual cutting wire, hot wire bow cutter, and that's it. So that's the power unit. That's how that works. This is the actual bow cutter itself. It's just a piece of wood made into a frame. It's got a switch. Basically, two wires get wired up to either side. Right here is a nichrome wire, or you could use a guitar string. You just want something thin, so when the current comes through, it heats up this wire. That's all that there is to it. So this is the load. It creates a resistance. This wire has a lot of resistance, so it heats up. Then you plug it into the power module, turn it on, this heats up. Simple as that. Now, one little thing about this. This here is the wire itself. I have it hooked up to a spring, so that way when it heats up, it will not loosen. So this provides a good amount of tension, because when the wire heats up, what ends up happening is it sags and stretches. So this spring prevents that from happening. So that's about it. That's the bow cutter. Nothing much to it. And then on this side is where I plug it in. So I plug this into this guy here. So I've clamped this up. I got a clamp on this side here, so when I run the hot wire, it doesn't hit the clamp. I have to have one in the center here, unfortunately, but that's okay. I'll stop here and then I'll go from the other side and then take this clamp off and finish it off. This just makes it so that I can just do this in 2 swipes, basically. Alright, so I'm going to hot wire off the top here. So I'm going to turn this on, let it heat up, which will only take a second. You might see it smoke from the residual. It's smoking a bit there. See there? That's from the residual from last time. And I'm just going to run this and keeping pressure downward when I cut this off. Alright, that looks pretty good. Nice and even. Repeat on the other side, then cut it in half. So I've reclamped, moved the boards, measured halfway, and then reclamped the boards in place so that I can hot wire the blank directly in half. So I had to split this making the blank video into 2 parts. This was part 1, part 2 will follow. I was just getting a little too long, so I thought I would split it into 2 parts. So the next part, I'm going to put a stringer into the board. So I'm completely done here. I have the board, I have the foam split in 2 pieces now to accept the stringer. And if you're making a stringerless board, some parts of the next video will come in handy probably for you. Regardless, watch it, see what you think. You might get some tips and tricks from it. Alrighty, the next video I will post very soon. If not, it's already posted.